Hey everyone, welcome back to Rudy's 1/6 World for another retrospective showcase. And it has been a little while since we've done one of these, but with the slight lull in new releases, or at least me getting new releases, I was able to finally jump back and look at the figures I actually do have. So today we'll be looking at Daredevil, released by Hot Toys based on his appearance on season 2 of the Netflix show. Now, at this point, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that my collection leans heavily towards Marvel. I have been and continue to be an MCU fan, even enjoying the shows. And although I do think there have been some really great ones like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, and Moon Knight, to me the highlight Marvel show continues to be that original Daredevil Netflix show. It was the one show that felt like it had 3 consistently strong seasons, never stumbling, and gave us to date what I think was one of the best versions of Daredevil. And look, I love the dark grittiness that the show brought with it, and I think that was a highlight of the Netflix Marvel shows overall. As far as continuity, I know Marvel is releasing a new Daredevil show next year, and I'm looking forward to it, and they're calling it a slight reboot, but if you watch She-Hulk and the episode with the Daredevil appearance, his suit looks very similar to what we're getting here, minus the color palette, and there's a moment where you do get a hint of the Daredevil theme from the Netflix show, so for me, no matter what anyone says, this show is still in continuity. So enough of that. Let's look at the figure, and I'll start by saying I don't have the box. I know some of you keep the boxes, but living in an apartment, there wasn't room for storage. So no box, but we will take a look at the figure and the overall package Hot Toys gave us here. And it's actually pretty nice. Besides the figure, you get a small assortment of hands, and you also get multiple versions of his batons, which we'll look at more closely. And he also comes with an alternate mouth plate, so you can change up his expressions, which I think was critical for this figure. The big item here, though, is the display stand, which does also double as a diorama, so nice touch. So looking more closely, we'll start with the batons, and we get 3 sets. The first are the 2 individual pieces, which he can use in both hands, but you can see the detail work in the silver where they ideally join together to form the larger stick for more ranged fighting. And the details are great. Color matches his suit perfectly with a dark maroon, and there's nice texturing on the grips, and the silver components look weathered and nicely detailed. And then the final piece is the disassembled stick with the steel cable connecting the 2 ends. And it also looks great, with the wire that Hot Toys used having some nice detail work to almost look like a braided steel cable, so they picked a good wire for that. So also gives you nice options with him. Next, you get a few extra hands, basically fists and open palms, which work nicely to recreate fight stances and so on. And again, it goes with Daredevil's MO as a brawler type. And the detail work here is awesome, with the nice color variations, again matching the suit, and even the detail work on his knuckles with the armored elements. And I'm happy to say, swapping these out, relatively painless. So nice to have to not have to deal with peg issues on this figure. And finally, you get that nice display stand that can actually be modified to be a small diorama. The base itself is the traditional kind of base you've seen with the Star Wars figures, with a nice metal plate indicating Daredevil on the front, and it looks like a street with shiny elements simulating puddles of water. Then you do also get this black bar that just pushes up against the back of the stand, and you drop in the additional diorama piece, which looks like a small curb. It includes the drain for the street water, and it works well with some brickwork, debris, broken pipes, etc. And definitely fits nicely into the urban atmosphere associated with the character. I do wish the base could be held together more firmly, maybe with some magnets, but it's serviceable and it looks good, which is the important part. So now let's turn to the figure itself and start with the sculpt. And we'll start with the battle damaged grimacing look, which I think is my personal favorite. There's just an intensity to that lower faceplate that captures the spirit of Daredevil from the show, with the blood dripping down his lips and the side of his cowl. Now, this is what does make him a Season 2 figure, and that's the full red cowl. Season 1 had the black plate on the front. This one feels more accurate to the comics, and I think it looks amazing, with the subtle detail work showing the black portions of the helmet holding the red panels in place, and the small red horns. But the highlight for me, for the cowl, are the eyes, with that vibrant reflective red. It really does set him apart from other helmeted figures, and just adds to the intensity of the character's appearance. Now, as for the rest of the suit, going back and watching Season 1 and Season 2, one thing that I remember is Daredevil's always in shadows, and he's always in the dark. So as an audience, we got a general sense of what his suit looked like, but it wasn't like everything was fully lit up. So this is kind of an opportunity to see the suit in much more detail. And I really do like the work that Hot Toys did here. Now, when the figure came out, I remember there were a ton of complaints about posability. And I do agree somewhat. And I think the other complaint here was that the figure was a little too bulky. So I'm sure you can find pictures of some mods that were made for this guy to try to get rid of that underlying suit, just to slim him down a little bit. I'm not as courageous to try that with my figures, and I do like what we have here. I think the suit looks screen accurate, and I think it fits in nicely with an MCU display because it looks more armored and maybe a little busier than people would like, but it definitely fits in with what we're used to from the MCU with those armored plates, the rivet details, the buckles. It just works. I think the only qualm I have are the boots. They're a little too plastic looking. Hot Toys did weather them and gave them a dirty appearance, and they are split cut, which helps with posability, but they do seem a little low definition, although this is an older figure, so we might be spoiled by more recent releases. I'll say I've had him in a slightly dynamic pose for a few years as well, mainly with his arms, and the suit has held up remarkably well, so I do appreciate that quality here. And even with his arms bent at the elbow, closing in on that, not even 90, on that 180 degree bend, there hasn't been any deterioration of the suit or permanent damage that I can see. So that's a big positive. Now, as far as the posability, everyone always talked about, he is a little harder to pose. And his legs and waist are definitely restricted by the suit and the underlying padding. But I think if you're patient enough, you can get some really nice poses. Granted, they're not the most dynamic, but his arms do have some nice flexibility, as does the head on the neck joint, so you can at least get him posed in interesting ways, and you can use his weapons to create that sense of movement. I even have him in a pose where he's literally standing and just grabbing his fist, ready for a fight, and it looks really good. So even with some of those flexibility issues, I think all he requires is a little patience and you can get him to look amazing. For me personally, that's one of the fun things of doing these retrospective videos. I get to update some poses and really appreciate the figures that I do have, because these figures, even though they're older, they still look great, and there really are nice highlights to any collection. And I got them because, of course, I like the character and I like the figure, so it's just nice to revisit them from time to time. Now, to date, this is the only Daredevil we've gotten, but that should be changing soon. Now, Daredevil made his return in No Way Home as Matt Murdock, but officially I think the return for the suit, which also included a hallway fight scene, was in She-Hulk. And say whatever you will about that show, I think everyone seemed to generally be pleased with Daredevil's return. So Hot Toys did tease that version of the character as a figure multiple times with the yellow cowl and the yellow plates, and I would love to pick him up since he has that different color suit that matches the more classic or older classic comic look. But who knows with Hot Toys? At this point, that figure might be relegated to the vault of unreleased prototypes. It just, again, I don't know what they're thinking. I'll bring it up again. I'm going to bring this up in almost every video, but we still haven't gotten a Namor from Black Panther, from the Black Panther sequel. Still haven't gotten a Miss Marvel. You know, there are a lot of characters that they've just haven't even touched. So will they issue a Daredevil from She-Hulk? I'm not sure. But even if we don't get that figure, I can almost guarantee we'll get another version from the upcoming Born Again series. The other great thing about this figure is how it looks with the other characters. Because combined with So-So Toys and the Punisher we got from Hot Toys, we actually did get a really nice Netflix Marvel collection of figures here. So that was a quick look back at the Hot Toys Daredevil figure, and it really is a personal favorite from the collection. Not just because it's actually a really decent figure, but it also helps when the source material is so good. And again, I don't think Marvel shows have matched what we got with all these Daredevil seasons. So let me know your thoughts, and if you do own the figure, any pitfalls or issues you might have had. And as always, thank you for watching, and if you are enjoying, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll touch base on the next video.